Hey, what's up, everyone? Good Monday morning to all of you. Welcome to the Sweat presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Latzia. A lot on this show, including looking back at what went down last night between the 76ers and the Heat. We got some best bets and top DFS plays to discuss around the NHL, MLB, PGA Tour, all that fun stuff. But yeah, Joel Embiid, not going to be your NBA MVP this season. That's reportedly going to be Nikola Jokic. DraftKings contributor Matt Meiselman, Nick Friar, they're in the house. Friar, did they get it right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did. With what goes on in the regular season, I do think they got it right. I think the push that we saw from Nikola Jokic throughout the entire season, with no Jamal Murray there at all, as much as I respect what Embiid did in the first half of the season, in the early portion of the season, it's just that Nikola Jokic just turned out to be a little bit better, and he needed to carry his team more. And as much as I still think the Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better over the years and is deeper, and I like those four teams more in the East right now that are left, I do think that the Western Conference is still just a slight bit tougher.
Hey, Maddie, would he have received your vote? Jokic.
No, no. Oh, Jokic would have for sure, not Embiid.
Yeah.
I think Embiid hit an unbelievable season and is one of the best players in the NBA. But I think he's actually number 3. I would have put Giannis ahead of him too. Maybe close between those two guys, but to me, Jokic was always the clear best player in the league. And everyone defines MVP differently, but if we're talking about who was the best, it's Jokic. We're talking about who played the best, and then also who elevated their team the most. I think Jokic wins in all of those categories. So it really, the Embiid argument was just a first half of season argument, and by the second half of the year, it was pretty clear, at least to me, that Jokic had pulled way ahead of him, and I think it ended up being clear to the voters too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't undersell too the impact that Embiid has had on this series against the Heat too, Matt. But looking at him like big picture, maybe it's just been average numbers that he's been putting up. But the dude does have like a broken face. James Harden, though, turned back the clock yesterday. Like, was he the reason like Philly won that thing and was able to even up the series?
The reason is Embiid, and it's not just Embiid. It's that he's not DeAndre Jordan. Like, the difference between Embiid and who would have been playing instead is just so enormous. And part of what was the concern for the Sixers the first 2 games is that the Heat were doing a great job of doubling James Harden. And with Embiid on the floor, they can't do that anymore. So yes, Harden has played a lot better, but I don't think there's any way he would have been able to play this well without Embiid there. The synergy between those two guys clearly is a big deal. So Embiid maybe isn't putting up the huge numbers that we've come to expect, but the defense has been just massive. They wouldn't be winning the series without it, or at least they wouldn't be tied right now without it. And I don't think Harden would be able to be nearly this efficient without having Embiid there. So everyone's playing better, but it all started with Embiid returning to the lineup.
Yeah, Friar, but you can't ignore like Harden in that fourth quarter performance yesterday.
Yeah, look, I don't like giving James Harden credit too much, but yes, he did play well yesterday. At the same time, I do agree with Matt that this series, I think this series might have been over if Embiid had not returned for Game 3. Even if he had just returned for Game 4, they still might have not been able to pull off a win in that one, just because he had been out for so long. But I think what we're seeing right now is the Heat are a good team. I think they're a solid team. I do think that they could contend if they made it so far to the finals with whoever the Western Conference has to throw at them. But I think when you look at some of these Eastern Conference teams that are left, I don't think they match up all that well. I know these last 2 games were in Philly, but I now think that the way that Harden played the other night, if he can at least come close to replicating that, and Embiid continues to do what he's doing, maybe even pick it up a little bit, I think now you're looking at the Sixers, and I feel like this is the Sixers series now.
Okay, and just like with Philly and Miami, Nick, no team has won on the road between Dallas and Phoenix. So Dallas goes bombs away yesterday. Suns get sloppy. Chris Paul fouls out in Game 4. Through 2 games, Nick, the Mavs looked outclassed. Like, how have they been able to even this series?
Yeah, I think this says a lot about Luka Doncic and what he's been able to do with his team and how he's been able to carry things. I know we're getting contributions from Dorian Finney-Smith and Jalen Brunson, although Jalen Brunson, who kind of struggled against the Suns, at least to get over that 20-point mark throughout the regular season against the Suns, not really doing it here either. So he's been solid, he's been good, but we're seeing a lot of different contributions across the board. I think what we're seeing with the Mavericks are Luka's looking good and everything, but they need that other guy at some point down the line to add. with him that complements his game well and that helps, in case Luka's getting doubled or anything like that. But yeah, you mentioned Emerson, like no one has won on the road in this series yet. And to me, until that happens, it doesn't really matter. I still think this is the Suns series to win. But I do think it's clearly getting pushed to the brink.
All right. Well, Maddie, any interest in Mavs plus 210 to win this series now?
I like the underdogs in most of the series right now. This is the one exception where I think the Suns are a little undervalued coming off these two games. And home court has just been a really big deal in this series. Officiating has also been a big deal in this series. And game 4 was just really fluky for a lot of reasons. I don't see the Mavericks shooting this well the last 3 games of the series. I do think it has a decent chance to go 7, but the Mavericks are playing a little over their heads right now. I think they underperformed in games 1 and 2 and overperformed in games 3 and 4. The Suns being roughly 6-point favorites for game 5 makes sense. They should be able to win. And even if they lose game 6, they'll get another game at home in game 7 where they'll be probably 6 or 7-point favorites again. So the Suns are the better team. I think the Suns are better than the Warriors. And I don't know that I'm laying minus 230 or so with Phoenix right now for this series, but plus money on the Suns to win the West, I still think looks pretty good. Like once they play the Warriors, I think they'll be significant favorites in that series.
All right, guys, let's shift gears to tonight. Hook me up with your best top price guy for Celtics, Bucks, or Warriors, Grizzlies. Give me one dude, Nick.
So I know that Giannis has the highest ceiling on this slate, but I still like Jaylen Brown a little bit more tonight at 8.2K going up against the Bucks. I know he's put up back-to-back 50 DK fantasy point performances in the last 2 games, and I think right now where you have Tatum, who I know we're going to see him improve tonight. I think with the price differential, I'd still rather go with Brown because it makes it easier to pair with another high-priced guy like maybe a Drew Holiday or a Steph Curry, who are kind of he's sandwiched in between in terms of pricing. And I think right now with Giannis, we've seen him he put up over 70 DK fantasy points last time out, but we've also seen him put up around 50 in this series too. So I don't necessarily trust that he's going to bring that full value where I think with Brown, we're seeing whether Tatum's done good or Tatum's done bad. He's right in that 50 range after game 1. So I feel much more comfortable going with him as my guy tonight.
All right, Matt, who are you comfortable paying up for tonight?
I think Brown is a fine call. I think playing Giannis is fine too. But as far as ownership, I think Jayson Tatum is the guy that people are a little scared off of right now, just with how poorly he played in game 3. So I'll just go with Tatum. I think the discount off Giannis is significant enough where that's at least comparable in terms of points per dollar from those two guys. But Tatum probably has something like a little extra to prove for this game. And then I also think the field probably moves a little bit away from him. So that combination at 9,700, I think it sets up as a pretty good spot for Tatum.
Well, Maddie, who would you say is the best value play tonight in DFS?
So I don't know that you literally have to play this guy. You certainly are going to have to play someone on his team, but Tyus Jones filling in for Ja Morant, who by all accounts is not going to be available. Tyus Jones is only 3,400, and we could see 30, 35 minutes out of him with a decent usage rate, with plenty of assist opportunities. So for cash games, you just have to click the button for Tyus Jones. It's not even a decision. For tournaments, you could pivot around. There's DeAnthony Melton. There's Dylan Brooks. Desmond Bane will be popular. I think all these guys are going to be pretty popular, and someone's going to produce, so you need some combination of Grizzlies guards here, but I think the easiest call is just to take Jones because his price is just so low for the situation where Morant's not playing.
Friar, who's your value play?
Yeah, I think Tyus Jones is the right call on this one too at 3.4K because either he's going to be starting he's going to be taking some of those minutes that Morant was getting before, or he's going to be backing up Melton and then cutting into some of those minutes that Melton was getting coming in reserve. But I think Melton also is a guy I look at and I think I like him a little bit more. I know he's a little bit more expensive too at 4.8K, but we should see an increased shot volume from him. Of course, last game when that blowout, he got up like 14, 15 shots. And the thing with Bane too, I normally love Desmond Bane, but he's struggled in this series. He struggled against the Warriors throughout the regular season too. I understand somebody's going to have to score, but I think it's going to be someone like Jaren Jackson before him. And then I would think, honestly, DeAnthony Melton is going to be before him as well, just because he has not been able to find his stroke this series. I want him to, but I just think Melton has been a little bit more he's a little bit more trustworthy right now and a little bit more aggressive. And also he's done work elsewhere too, where he's not as scoring reliant as a Bane is.
All right, Friar, we'll get you out of here with this. Which game's money line or spread do you like tonight? It's at 10 points now. Warriors are the favorites with Ja Morant expected to miss.
Yeah, of course he's doubtful, and I can't help but look at that one a little bit. But I'm going to go with Celtics money line here. I just think the Celtics are too good a team to go down 3-1 in this series. They've made adjustments. I do think, as much as I have been a little critical about Jayson Tatum and the whole top 5 player hype, I do think to some extent that's warranted, and I think that he is going to step up tonight. And I think Jaylen Brown has responded to that struggling first game as well. So I think that the Celtics, they have the personnel to at least slow down Giannis, where I think that, again, we've seen him beat him already once this series. I know it's tougher on the road in Milwaukee, but there's no way that Ime Udoka is going to let his team come back to Boston down 3-1.
Maddie, what bet do you like?
Nick's going with the pick that my heart wants to make with the Celtics. Like, I really want to be confident that they'll win, but this is too close to a coin flip for me to like really be confident betting this game. I just hope they win so they can get back and win this series. But the more logical pick, the pick that I think is actually more of a value here, is Memphis getting the points. And I thought this line was going to be inflated already if Morant played. Obviously, there have been a couple points added to it because he's doubtful. During this season, I think we all know at this point, the Grizzlies were just fine without Ja Morant. And I think it's a little different in the playoffs because Morant's defense has really picked up. So they're probably losing a little bit more without Morant than they would have, say, 2, 3, 4 months ago. But I still think this is a really good team, even without Morant playing. I think the Warriors are still going to feel the loss of Gary Payton and Andre Iguodala a little bit, where their defense is not great. So this game should be a little closer. Memphis should be highly motivated to even up this series. I don't think they win it, but 10 points is a lot, and I think the line should probably be a little bit lower than that.